what's coming down the pike for Concur. We do have a webcast going at the same time, and we've got 15 or 20 people in there right now. So it's great to have those people joining us remotely. I figured I'd just do some quick introductions and then get into a little preview of what's coming in Concur with NextGen Expense and a little bit about the timing for when it's coming. So I'm Justin Wild. I'm the Cloud Solutions Analyst, and I handle the Concur configuration and a lot of the user support for Concur. We've got Angie Yarborough here. She's the Travel AP Supervisor. And we have Rylan Dominguez, who's our learning support for all the learning materials that are developed for this and other systems as well. And Diana Zinsley is here as well, who is our P-Card program administrator. So if you have any questions while I'm talking, please hold on to them till the end, and we'll take them at that time. And since we've got the webcast going, we'll make sure that you get a microphone in order to let everybody hear. So, what is it? Concur is changing what it looks like when you enter your expense report, and it's called NextGen Expense, and it's just a new UI with an updated look and feel. And this only affects the expense report entry, so you're not going to see any changes to the travel request section, and approvers are not going to see any changes on their approval screens at this time. So why is Concur going to NextGen Expense? So as you know, Concur is a cloud application, and like other cloud apps, it is continually evolving and it's routinely updated based on customer feedback. And in this case, for NextGen, it's built from research and data that includes 680 one-on-one conversations, 58 usability studies, and over 3,000 survey responses that Concur conducted with its clients around the world. And of note is that Concur is requiring all of its clients to move to this new UI. So we want to make sure that UCAR is part of that, because all the future features that Concur develops are going to be released on the new UI only. So when is this going to happen? In January this year, we asked for some volunteers from some of our power users, and they've been helping us for the past couple of months to kind of put the new UI through its paces and help us direct where our learning materials are going to focus. And then we've split the release of NextGen for everybody else into two phases. So the first phase is going to be coming on April 1st. That's a Monday, and that's for all travel coordinators and P-Card cardholders. And then 3 weeks later, on April 22nd, we're going to release the UI to the remaining UCAR staff. Okay, so let's get into what's new. So this is the expense report header that you're used to. You can see that the request currently is attached at the bottom of the expense report header. For NextGen expense reports, it's still best practice to click on the expense link from your travel request if you're doing a travel expense report, because if you do that, then it will pre-fill all of your header information into the expense report for you, so you don't have to do that manually. But don't worry if you forget to, no, I'm sorry, actually definitely click on that expense link, because that's going to fill it in for you, and you want that to make your life a little easier. But if you do forget, you can click on the Manage Requests link within the report details screen to add your request later on. You just won't get those fields filled in automatically for you. So this is what the expense report header in NextGen looks like. It was hard to fit it all on one screen, so it's a little cut off, but as you can see, we've got some larger fields to make it a little more readable, and required fields are now marked with a red asterisk instead of the red line to the left. And then here you'll see that if you want to add travel allowance, which is also known as per diem, that's done at the bottom of the expense report header here. You just answer yes to that question and it will launch you into the travel allowance section. And this is one, if you miss that, then you can easily get back to that from the report details screen. So here's a view of the current expense list as you know it, and what that same screen will look like in NextGen UI. So you still have all of your reports alerts at the top of the screen now. Those are also known as exception messages. But now it's a collapsible list, and you can click on the view link on each of those alerts to jump straight to the field or item that requires attention. So that's really nice. And then you can also still select multiple expenses at one time and then perform actions on them, such as allocating them to different account keys. And now you can click on the icons to view additional information. So if you've got an alert, you can view that alert there, and you can see there's a little view link next to it, and again that'll take you straight to the field or item requiring attention. And if there's a comment, you'll see a little comment icon. You can click on that to get a view of the comment right there without having to jump into the expense. On the right side, you can see an example of an expense that has been allocated and itemized, and you can click on that allocate link to jump straight to the allocation for that. So currently your available expenses, such as your T-card or P-card expenses, are entered using a separate link, and it's hard to read here, it's a little small, but that's the import expenses link. And then your out-of-pocket expenses are added on the right side there. And in NextGen UI, you add them both from the same spot. So you'll click the blue Add Expense button, and then that'll launch a pop-up window that first shows any of your available expenses. And then if you don't have any, it'll bring you to the Create New Expense tab on that pop-up, and that tab is where you'll enter your out-of-pocket expenses. And here's a view of the current expense details screen where you fill out all the information for an individual expense item. And this is what it looks like in NextGen expense. So you're going to have your receipt always visible on the right half of the screen there, so that allows you to enter the details from that and view the receipt at the same time. Now the Itemize button is a tab at the top there, and the allocation has moved to a text link in the upper left. And you can also use that allocate button from the expense link that we saw just a moment ago. So as you know, each lodging expense has to be itemized when adding your lodging folio to your report. And this is where you're going to see one of the biggest and best changes with the new UI. So on the lodging entry here, you'll see the itemizations tab, and on this screen you've got an option now for lodging rates that are either the same every night or not the same. So this makes it a lot easier to enter a lodging expense, for instance, that has a different rate for weekdays versus weekends. That way you don't have to create new expenses anytime the rate changes on your lodging. And then here's a view of the allocating expenses screen, and you can currently do that by percent or by dollar amount. And the new UI has that same functionality, just has a updated look and feel to it. So at the top there's a percent or amount selection buttons, and you'll see the default account key from the header in the code section. And then account keys can be manually added for allocation by using that add button. And when you click on that, you'll get a pop-up window where you can add a new allocation or select from your favorite allocations. So if you've got a particular split between two account keys that you always use, you can set that as a favorite and recall that easily here. So here's the approval flow in the current UI. It just shows you the approval flow and the current approver, and that's it. In the new UI, we have what's called the report timeline. And this adds some more information. So you see your report name at the top with the total. On the left side, you get that approval flow, and the current approver will show up there as well, just like it does today. But now you also get your entry level comments and your report level comments on this screen. So it gives you a little more information on one screen here. And then anytime you click on the add comment button, that's going to add another comment to the timeline. And the most recent comment that's on there can be edited if you need to by going to the report header. So that's really it for the major changes with that. It's mainly just updated look and feel for Concur, a little bit easier to read things. But if you want to learn more about it, Ryland has been working very hard to update our Concur user support site, and we've got all of those materials updated there. And we also have a page dedicated to the NextGen expense update. So if you get into the user support site, which you can do from Concur by clicking on Help Training, and then once there you can click on NextGen Expense Coming Soon to see that page. We're also offering more of these presentations in the coming weeks, and then we're going to have open labs available for everybody throughout all of April and into May as well. So if you'd like to come and bring the expense reports that you're working on, we will have staff on hand to work through them with you and help answer any questions. And then, as always, you can submit any other questions you have to the Concur help desk, and that will get routed to one of us on the team to help you out. So that's all I've got for you. I'm happy to take some questions now. Yeah, we'll get you a microphone.
Currently in the expense report, one of the first steps that you do is you put in the actual timeline of what dates the person left and where they went, and that's what generates the per diem. And so it looked like that's not the case in the NextGen from one of your early on slides where you showed a button at the bottom.
Yeah, so you'll have a similar setup for that when you actually get into the itinerary creation where you enter those dates. That actually currently looks exactly the same as it does in the current UI. So that screen is not changing yet. It will be improved in the future, but we don't have any timeline for when that's coming. The only difference is that now, instead of after you fill out your header and click save, you get a pop-up currently asking you to create those travel allowances. Now you've got that yes/no question at the bottom of the header, and when you click yes and then save, it's going to bring you into that screen. So really the only difference right now is that you're not getting the pop-up, you're getting that question at the bottom of the header.
And then my second question has to do with when you're pulling in the expenses. And one thing I've often wondered is, one of the common things that you pull in are the flights. And when you book a trip, you have to put in the travel ID anyway. But yet, if you have a traveler who travels a lot, you still need to then actually go and look and make sure that you're pulling in the right flight itinerary. Isn't there any way behind the scenes to be able to tie those flights that were ticketed to that trip ID right to the trip you're expensing?
I'm not sure I understand fully the issue that's happening. Okay, Angie's got some input.
Okay, so I think the fact that asking for the request ID is kind of a custom field. When we built the request and doing the travel piece of it, that it's not really a Concur functionality, so I think that's probably why we can't link that. But we just felt that, you know, having that level of detail associated with the reservation could help us in the long run. So that's kind of why we asked for it. Yeah.
I mean, it's fine, you know, just to go over the details of what you're expecting. But I just thought, well, okay, that makes sense.
All right.
Yeah, so the expense item level request ID field does not link directly, but when you link a request to the whole report, that does link it. So, and we are looking at making some improvements surrounding that. So hopefully that'll get a little bit more intuitive in the near future. Have any online comments?
No. If
there's anybody online who has a comment or question, send it in.
You got one.
Okay.
Cheryl. From Cheryl. I currently have an in-process P-card expense report that I'll submit at the end of the month. Will I have to redo it with the new UI, or will I be able to submit it as it is?
Yeah, that's a great question. So no, you will not have to redo your whole report. It will pull your existing entries into NextGen UI. However, you may get some exception messages that pop up that don't seem quite right. So if you do encounter that, just go into the expense and click Save again so that it reevaluates that exception, and typically those will clear right off. Good question. Yeah.
I do a lot of expense reports for visitors, and so what will that process look like? Is it pretty much the same where we have to send the expense report to the visitor for them to approve?
Yeah, that piece will be just the same. Okay, no other questions online? Okay. Well, thank you, everybody. If you think of something after the fact, definitely shoot us a help desk ticket. We'd be happy to answer it and answer any other questions that you have about the upcoming change. And just as a reminder, it'll be April 1st for all travel coordinators and P-card cardholders, and then everybody else on the 22nd, 3 weeks later. So thank you all for coming.